sponsor al emisiunii, Fundația Art Production, Gigi Căciuleanu, Romania Dance Company.
Salutare! Bine v-am regăsit la Garantat 100%. Invitatul nostru din seara asta e unul dintre cei mai recunoscuți și apreciați regizori din lumea asta. Le mulțumim prietenilor de la Teatrul Excelsior care ne-au mijlocit această întâlnire. Invitatul nostru este prezent la București în cadrul Festivalului Internațional de Teatru X-Fest, un festival organizat de Teatrul Excelsior. E o mare onoare să-i spunem bun venit la Garantat 100% regizorului de teatru Thomas Ostermeier. Good evening.
Hello.
Thank you so much for accepting this invitation.
Thank you for having me.
There's a contemporary mantra today. There are many contemporary mantras today, but one of them sounds like this. It's very important to have success and to be famous. Lots of people are obsessed with that. How do you perceive the idea of success as far as you are concerned?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I wouldn't consider myself as being famous, maybe successful, but I started my career as a theater maker at the age of 26, and quite soon I was very much praised in the German theater world, little later in international theater. So I saw at the age of 29, let's say, already one of my first peaks of being well known. But being well known also means and also meant for me that there's media around you, there's a competition in the media who was first to say, wow, this guy is great, and look at this theater show, and who is the second and who is the third, and then when they all agree, there's a new competition of the media saying who was the first or who is the first to say, well, he's actually not that great like we all thought because he did a failure as a show. So I saw this in my career. I'd say I experienced this at least 5 times. 5 times where they said, wow, this is great, then it went down. First time it went down was when I took over the Schaubühne.
Yep.
And that was in 2000, big expectations, everybody saying, well, only 30 years old. Already before I took over Schaubühne, I did my first show on a big stage in the Deutsches Theater. And there people started saying, what is this? How can this guy run such a big institution?
How can you handle such an important institution?
How can I hold this important institution with all this heritage, with all the legacy of Peter Stein and the golden era? And then they agreed for 2 years, well, he can't. This is not good what he does. He has an issue with the audience. He has an issue with the quality of his actors and so on. And then came a smash hit, which was Nora, which we also presented here, A Doll's House by Henrik Ibsen. And then again, people said, wow, this is amazing. This is the best we can have. And we are so happy. And this went up and down and up and down. The peaks, I can only mention the peaks because everybody forgot about the lows. The peaks were Nora, Hedda Gabler, and then later Hamlet, Marriage of Maria Braun, Richard III, and what we're having now with the show we are presenting here in Bucharest, which is A History of Violence by Edouard Louis. This is part of my period working with Edouard Louis and Didier Ribon, which is a very important period for myself because it makes a connection with my own concerns, political concerns, with my background, working class background, and the situation of how do you today raise this question again. So sorry for being so long in my answer. So this is how I experience it. But also, and that was what I was thinking of when you're asking this question, I think this obsession of being famous and being a celebrity is actually our new religion of our times. You know, there were other times where people had belief in changing the world with being politically engaged or doing art or at least becoming a musician. But now if you want to become a musician, it's not, sometimes I have the impression it's not so much about the music, it's more about how many followers do you have on Instagram. So this is our new obsession, and it is, I think it's a completely empty religion, of course. And yeah, I will not go further into this. I don't know if
I will go further, because as you said, you don't know whether it's about music or it's about being famous. In fact, democracy in arts, it's quite an issue today. What is the difference in terms of perception, as far as you are concerned, in between you yourself when you were 28 or 30 and this very moment when you are 54, 55?
Different.
Because at that moment when you were 28, you might have said democracy in arts is the key. Will you say the same thing today?
I know what you're pointing at. I would say, yes, I would encourage every team, every artistic team taking over theater to try it. I would encourage everybody to install a participative model like we did. I think only because for us it wasn't a failure. It lasted for some years. It was exhausting. It was very much taking even the artistic energy, because we were meeting every Monday, the whole team, 50 people in one room, a lot of artists with all the concerns they could have. And we were young and naive, and we made terrible mistakes, because on our schedule of what we are going to talk about, we were not prioritizing art. That's what we did later. Later we were talking about art.
What were you prioritizing then?
Well, there was no priority. It was just what the people wanted to talk about. And at the end of the day, they were talking about that the price for a coffee in the cantina is too high. And if we, as an artistic direction, can't do anything about it, and the food is not good, and so on. So it was really minor issues. But as we were so young, we did not understand how to deal with that. Later on, we were prioritizing reading of plays, talking about plays. But there was also a lot of jealousy. Why is he playing this role, and why is she not having the main role? It is a change, but you learn so much. It's so important to go through this process. I think this is also in education always a big question as a father or a mother. Do I protect my child from making bad experience, or do I let him make the bad experience, or her, and then see what's happening? And I would always go for saying, let them make the experience.
You were talking about highs and lows, peaks and lows, especially at the beginning of your career. Have you ever directed or engineered a law in your career, just to be sure that if you have a law position at a certain moment, you will jump to a peak afterwards? Have you ever engineered
I know.
Bad reputation, for example?
No. No, I'm not a strategic or tactic
that was my question,
person.
Yeah.
Not at all. Maybe this looks from the outside, but from the inside, each show I'm preparing is for me a very heavy burden. And I don't know where am I going to land. Is it a good idea? At the moment I'm working on a new adaptation. I'm constantly asking myself, is it a good idea or not? Can you do this? Can you do a version? That's what I'm working on. Can you do a version of King Lear with only one or two actors around, only 2 female actresses and 1 Lear. Is that possible? And this is a real concern. And never, when I'm working, I go like, okay, Thomas, now you're creating a failure in order to have a comeback. I would even say, I don't even know if there will ever be a peak again. You know, it's. I was quite happy about last night. That I have to admit, last night was really very touching for me, and an incredible moment to have.
Happy to hear that.
To have this big theater in the middle of Bucharest, like close to 1,000 people in the audience, full, and a lot of young people, and I was very much surprised about that, because when you go to the theater, you would expect like an average of 55 years, but then it felt vivid. It felt like important for them to be there and to see the show. And then they were all giving standing ovations in the end. It was very, very moving to know and to see that what we are bringing here gives a sense to the life of the people here. It's not about, oh, it was a successful last night. I had the feeling that the people were like, okay, yeah, he touched a point. He's talking about something which we can understand, and it even touches our emotions.
Do you think that the people staying, I don't know, in the rows of that huge theatrical hall, which is the central hall in the National Theatre, do you think that they really perceived the performance? I mean, the performance is something very tiny, somewhere in the middle of the dark, but everybody knows that they attend an Ostermeier performance. And sometimes this is bigger than the performance itself.
It's possible. It's possible. When we were dealing with the team here about which venue, we always said this is a very intimate performance, and maybe we should do it in a small space. And I said, yeah, but there's so many audience who wants to see the show. Please go into the big hall. But there is some moments of video and some moments of close-up. And I think these close-ups and these moments, also talking to the audience by video, by microphone, gives the people in the audience, even in the back row, the possibility of participating.
You said a few years ago, in a very interesting interview, you said something like this: the fear of the actor to go on stage is the enemy of creativity. End of quotation.
Yeah.
Lots of people will say that this fear of the actor is one of the essential components of what an actor is. It's part of his or her essence. On the contrary, you say that that fear of the actor to go on stage is the enemy of creativity. Do you still support this point of view?
Well, I was talking in general about fear in a rehearsal room and in the context of theater. And what I'm trying to do is to deal with that and to think about, okay, how can we make the actor, the actress forget about this fear? Because, and I'd say every psychologist would agree on that, being creative in a moment of fear, I can't imagine doing that. Of course, there's a moment of the premiere, of the opening night, or of the show, where fear is part of the deal. But in the rehearsal room, you need to create circumstances for the actors where they, at least for 1-2 hours, forget about this stage fright and go into a productive situation of creating a situation with the character, with the emotions of the character.
But fear is part of the deal.
Yeah, fear is part of the deal in especially when it comes in front of an audience. But in a rehearsal room, or at least, I try to avoid this.
You also continue and say, the fear is even more present in the younger generation. They lose trust in the future. you say, I'm also teaching directing, and it really changed. The students are more and more afraid of building a career or even a private life. End of quotation.
Yeah, this is something which I observed and which is true for the generation of the last 10 years. It's very troubling to see how much they are unstable in the moment of starting out as a director or as an actor. I think they're all troubled because of several reasons. There's, of course, this big climate crisis. Mm-hmm. There's this feeling of we are the last generation. But there's also a moment of being children of a generation of parents where the parents were really like in an overheated moment of capitalism where the job and the private life and the marriage and everything else which you have to do, which is like taking a bicycle, doing yoga, going to the gym, being a wonderful partner, a perfect husband, and being a cook. So they have so many issues to deal with that it's always about performance, always about performing the best role of all these role models we have, and sadly enough the role models are shrinking. Our role model is talking about a marriage or a partnership is pretty much orientated with I'd say Anglo-Saxon role model of both perfect in the job, both successful, beautiful bodies, beautiful smile in their faces.
The ideal of beauty.
And this is a terrible challenge for this generation of parents. And I'd say this daily performance affects the children, even though they are trying to take much more care of children than other generations. This puts the children in a situation of constant instability because they can see the gap between the performance of the parents and the reality, and that they don't achieve what they're trying to perform. And that, of course, it affects the children because they're much more sensitive and they feel this. And so I'd say this is one of the reasons. There are a lot more, but I have the feeling this is one of the reasons. Another one is, of course, this fear of getting a job. Is this a true profession? Which was for me, I mean, when I started out, when I was studying, I never thought that I would be a director one day. I always thought, and that was for me funny, but that was other times, you know, it was beginning of the 90s in Berlin. We had 120 squatted houses. So we had a lot of people with a lifestyle of, okay, I have a shitty job, but I'm not paying for rent. I have a group of friends around me. We're having fun anyway. The beer is cheap.
Oh, yeah.
It was only 1 mark or 1.20. There was a lot of opportunities to make music, to have a stage, to do whatever you wanted.
Why did you choose to study in the East?
That was actually for me a condition. When I found out about the fact that you can study directing, which I didn't know, for me it was like, director, study directing? I always thought directors are people older than 55, and now I'm 55. I thought that 55 years old man with a beard having read a lot of books, this is a director. Yeah. And then I found out about this school, and because I was politically very engaged at the time, as I already said, I was living in a squatted house. I was in a leftist party, in a Trotskyist party actually. After the wall came down, we brought books of Bakunin, Bukharin, Trotsky, which was all forbidden under Stalinism. It was a very awkward situation as a leftist from the West to go to the East and tried to sell leftist books to people who were suffering for 40 years under Stalinism. Anyway, so
more precisely, were you an anarchist or a leftist?
Now, I was a leftist, and then still I have this discussions with my very good friend Geoffroy de la Gannerie, because he considers himself being an anarchist, and he always blames me for being a socialist. Yeah, you're a stupid socialist. He doesn't like this idea. Anyway, so this school I wanted to study directing, Ernst Busch, was a school completely in the tradition of Bertolt Brecht, of the Berliner Ensemble. So it was a school of political theater. It was a school of, in the heritage of this most important political theater maker in Germany, Bertolt Brecht. And I was a little bit looking around in West Germany and the theater schools, and that was all about psychology. It was all about, you have to think about yourself and what nightmares you've been going through in your childhood and so on. And I couldn't go there. This was not my way of approaching the contradictions of the world. Some do it by psychology. I always had a political view to talk about these contradictions. So I wanted to attend a school which gives me the opportunity to be in this tradition. I'm not saying that I wanted to copy, but that was for me a dream coming true. And even before the wall came down, I was thinking about going there, but you could as a Western student, but you had to pay 500 francs, Swiss francs, and I didn't have the money. So for me, the wall was an opportunity to fulfill my dream and to go to the East to study there.
As you said, you tried to create a fearless space during the rehearsals.
Which I'm not achieving all the time. I have definitely to say here.
As I said, you try to create.
Yeah, I try.
But at a certain moment, the performance is ready. Everybody has to meet the opening night. And certainly, you have to leave at a certain moment. The actors are no more within the fearless space. The performance has its own life. Well, that's my question about. What happens to the performance in the physical absence of the director? In your case?
I don't know, because I'm not present, so I can't tell what's happening. Most of the time, when I then come back after 10 or 15 shows, I'm shocked, I have to admit.
Can you put some nuance in this shock? What do you find out?
Well, there is a tendency of celebrating profound emotions by making false pauses on stage.
Can you please translate for our viewers, because this is a very important moment. What is that, a false pause?
Well, a false pause is like you're going through a dramatic situation as an actor, as a character, and instead of going against it, which is most of the cases the reality, like when I have a terrible situation, I just had a terrible situation because this morning I had a Zoom conference with artists from Israel who are coming to our theater working. And of course, this is a terrible situation, what's happening there, and then welcoming them and asking them to do a production is a very challenging moment. So when I observe myself in this kind of situations, I have to deal with, okay, how am I going to solve this now? How am I going to make everybody feel welcome? And so I'm fighting against this drama. And actors sometimes, I'm generalizing here, which I shouldn't do. Maybe I shouldn't even talk about it. But now that you asked me...
Since we're on the topic.
They have a moment of, oh, now I can feel this is a dramatic, emotional moment of the character. I can feel the silence in the audience, and then I'm starting to celebrate it with doing nothing.
Yes.
And they have this is possible for one moment, but if you do this systematically, it fucks up. Sorry, excuse my French. The situation of the play, because you lose the rhythm, you lose the action, you lose the audience, and this, I mean, but this is an old, very old knowledge. Meyerhold, the famous Russian, which is one of my idols, he was dealing with the same thing. He was writing in his diaries, the show when he went back was 20 minutes longer.
Yeah.
And this is happening always, that the show gets longer and longer and longer. And when you tell the actors after the show, well, when we started, it was 1 hour 30, now you're 1 hour 50, what's going on? It's not my fault, it's a partner. I'm doing, talk to him or her. So, shut up. I shared enough.
Thomas Ostermeier, just let us dig a little bit more in this topic. Just a little bit more.
I'm not sure, but you can try.
Just a little bit more. Maybe this is their type of natural mutiny. There's a certain type of tyranny of the director, and I insist, tyranny is a metaphor. There's a certain type of tyranny of the director, which is a total power at a certain moment, almost total power. When you leave, the actors have their republic, they have their revolution, they have their moment of freedom.
Have you been an actor before becoming a talk master?
Yes.
Okay. Now I know what we're talking.
But how will you judge that? Because
I can answer to that, and I definitely want to answer to that. Not true. In my perception of my job, I don't have complete freedom. Not at all. What I'm doing in the rehearsal space more and more and more is trying to give the actors a feeling of, this is me creating, this is me who created this moment, this is me encountering my partner. So I'm working on something which is again a cliche and which is again not revolutionary, but I'm working on withdrawing, stepping back more and more and more, so that the director is even not present anymore in the rehearsal space.
Mm-hmm. I know that you thought lots of time about this, but the more you are absent, the more you are a god. God is stronger in his absence. So this creation of
I like
absence,
metaphors, but they are not necessarily always true.
Okay.
It's a beautiful metaphor. I don't connect to it.
So you're not a god with our actors?
No, not at all. Talk to my actors. They have a very critical relationship with me.
Well, we have critical relationship with God as well.
Yeah, but I don't think you would meet anybody who would say, yeah, Thomas is a god for me. Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
Okay. Reality squeezes the human being in between tighter and tighter limits. Imagination seems to be a weaker and weaker capability of the human being. It looks like we need more and more reality day by day. In this very situation, does theater succeed today to be what it was 10 or 20 years ago? I mean, is theater, as we used to know it, still relevant today?
Well, let me put it that way. First of all, and honestly, and I'm sorry to say this, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care. I really don't care. This is my way of expressing. This is my passion. This is my moment of bonheur, of happiness. Succeeding in a rehearsal room to bring people together, connect them, and experience something new and truthful is what makes me happy. And all the years, which is now already quite a time, I did not care about is this show going to be a success? What do I need to do to create a success? Every time when I cared the least, the show was more successful. The show we are showing here in Bucharest is a show which I had an assistant director. This assistant director asked me, because he wanted to do his first show, asked me, what can I do? Then he was suggesting several, like the Zoo Story by Edward Albee. Come on, this is what everybody did since the 50s in a tiny little studio production. This is not something which I expect to be suggested. And then I told him, listen, my friend Edouard Louis, he's a great writer. He just wrote a great novel. Look at this. Why don't you do this one, History of Violence? Then we had problems with the editing house, and the editing house said, oh, there's many other theaters who want to do it. We only give you the right to do this book if Thomas does it himself. And I said, okay, guys, come on. Okay, then I do it. We do a quick 4 weeks rehearsal, no stage. I asked my friend Willy to do the drumming. We do a quick sketch of a show. Incredible success, the show. Because we were completely relaxed and we did not think about what does the audience expect, how to do it, what do we need to tell them. So coming back to your question, I'd say the less you are concerned about how to do theater, what to do in the next moment, the better for the show if you're truthfully to what the story is about, and if you're truthfully to yourself, like not lying, not faking in the sense of we do whatever we want. No, we do this special show, which is important to our heart, and it's important to be told. And that was the case with this show, and that's why it happened. And one last thing to add here, I think we have a great moment for doing theater, because we are living in a world where we are constantly in front of a screen and constantly in front of two-dimensional spaces and an overload of two-dimensional pictures and images where we cannot make a judgment anymore. Is this real? Is it not real? Is it really happening? Is it AI? Is it deep fake? What is it? In a theater, you sit down, it's a three-dimensional space, and nobody can fake. Either you believe in what's happening on stage and what the actors do, or you don't. And if they are not faking good in the sense of if they are not truthfully performing, they fail. But you cannot, tu peux pas tricher.
Yes.
You can't make it.
You can't cheat.
You can't cheat.
Yep.
And after all, spending your day in a 9-to-5 job in front of a screen, and then maybe once in a month going to the theater and
seeing a live beings.
And seeing a live being. I have the feeling, especially for the younger generation, there was a movement of people from the younger generation in Berlin disconnecting from any social media, withdrawing from any social media, and doing this kind of diet, and going back to reading books, going back to meeting friends, and going back to the real experience of a performance in a three-dimensional space. So I think there's not even hope for theater. I think that it's a medium of the moment in this world.
In this respect, why is Shakespeare so strong in the market, even today? Where is this coming from?
Well, there's a lot of reasons why. First of all, I'd say Shakespeare was the first eclecticist, the first postmodernist writer, because he put all the genres together. There's philosophy, to be or not to be. Mm-hmm. There is poetry. There is martial arts. Usually, there should be fencing during a performance. There's love. There's all the other ingredients which we know in drama is very important, like betrayal, jealousy, revenge, murder, death. But you have also very farcical, very comical scenes, like the grave diggers in the Hamlet, or the guy in Macbeth, the guy guarding the door. So you have something which is very much connected to our culture today, because our culture today is a mix of popular culture, stand-up comedian, people are going to a Rage Against the Machine concert. The next day, they go to the Philharmonie and listen to Bach. This is how I experience being somebody interested in the arts. I'm not only going every second week to the Philharmonie in Berlin and listen to a beautiful Bruckner symphony. I'm going to a punk concert. I love stand-up comedian. I love to watch martial arts on YouTube. I do this, it's ridiculous, but I look at this martial arts fighting. And so my perception of the world is consisting of all of this. And Shakespeare is the only writer who provides me with writing where I can experience all these moments, all these ingredients. I can put them together, and it's very profound. And for me as a director, what is the beauty working on Shakespeare is one day in the rehearsal room, I think, okay, now I solved it. Now I know what the scene is about. And I'm so happy because I have a very intelligent reading of the scene, and it's very good working with the actors. The next day, I work on the same scene, and I do believe the complete opposite. It's a complete opposite of how I read the scene. So it's a big challenge to work on Shakespeare, and that means it's very resourceful for my own life, because I can't be sure what it's about. You never know what is it really about. And why? Because Shakespeare has only one message, which is the human being can be a monster and a very beautiful and caring person. And in between this range, everything is possible.
Thomas Ostermeier, in this respect, why do we go to a theatrical performance with Hamlet if we all know that Hamlet is going to die at the end of the performance? What drives us each night to enter in a tiny space with little light,
it's not
watch the same text 11 times?
Yes, it's not about what is going to happen, it's about how it's going to happen.
Is it?
Yeah, of course. It's about how, in the eyes of this special actor, director, how do they believe the whole drama of Hamlet is going to happen. Hamlet is a good example, because I think, and this is Jan Kott, he said every generation is writing his own or its own Hamlet. So you can see in the reading of the Hamlet the misery of the times the production is made in. And yeah, my Hamlet is a lot about trying to put the mask of madness in order to hide, but then becoming mad under the mask because this performance of madness drives you mad. Don't know if this is something about our times.
I have a friend which is a very good theater director and very respected one. And he once said at a certain moment, maybe more or less as a metaphor, he said, if you solve in Hamlet the problem of the spirit, of the phantom, just solve that, and you've solved everything after that. The performance is solved entirely. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, you have to solve a lot more issues and problems. You have to solve the misogyny of Hamlet. This is a big issue, because how can you connect with somebody who treats Ophelia in the way he does treat Ophelia? Of course, there's a connection to the betrayal of her mother, but this is a big issue, big problem. Then you have to solve the question of how much does Gertrude know? How much does she know, and how much was she involved in the murder of the father? It's also something. I give a book recommendation here. John Updike, Gertrude and Claudius. A beautiful book about the life of Gertrude and Claudius before the play starts. Really, very deep insight in this play. I had one solution for this question of the ghost in Hamlet, but funny enough, you asking me this question, I was reminded that in a workshop, I think the workshop I did even before the staging, I had another solution which is much better, but I won't tell you. But it's obvious.
Naturally.
But it's obvious. This solution is obvious, and one day I will make a new version of Hamlet.
That was my question. Will you retake that?
Yes, for sure. For sure.
Thomas Ostermeier, thank you so much for accepting this invitation. It's been a privilege to have you as a guest in our show.
Thank you for having me, and yeah, I could see that there is an expert talking to me.
That's not about an expert, it's about somebody who's doing
Yeah,
his
but
job.
the expert of an ex-actor, I could at a certain moment, I was sure you must have been on stage.
I would not call it quite an ex-actor, as a matter of fact. Thank you so much, and good luck with all that you do.
You're welcome.
Tuturor celor care sunt alături de Garantat 100%, mulțumim frumos pentru încredere. Ne vedem duminica viitoare. Noapte bună!